Today's a versus video, Roland TD25kv versus the Alesis Strike Pro. What's up? My name is Justin. Welcome to 65 Drums, the place to keep on top of all things Edrum related. Hope you're all having an awesome day. This is a really heavily requested versus video. People have been asking me about this for the last year, and I finally got around to making it. Part of the reason why I couldn't make it until now is because I hadn't gotten a chance to play the Alesis Strike Pro. That thing has been selling so well that not a ton of stores have actually even had it as a demo floor unit yet. So I got to play it twice. I got to play it at a store, and I also got to play it for quite a while at a guy's house. Got to use it with the Pearl Mimic module. I also got to play it with the regular module that it comes with. If you want to see my first impressions video for that Alesis Strike Pro, I'll leave a link to it and my playing examples of the Alesis Strike Pro down in the description below. Also, I'll leave playing examples of the TD25 also in the description below as well. So let's start off with the drum rack itself. Which drum set has the better drum rack? And obviously the TD25 does not have the better drum rack. In fact, it's pretty small. It's okay with the pads that you're going to get, out of the box. It's even okay if you upgrade the snare and the floor tom and stuff. But if you want to add more pads, if you want to have really large electronic drum pads, not the best drum rack for that. It's a pretty small drum rack. It does the job. It's not going to fall over. It's not going to break on you. It's completely fine for the package that it comes in. For the pads it's got, it's a completely fine drum rack. But for expanding and stuff, not the best drum rack out there. Now, the Alesis Strike Pro, you really can't upgrade it anymore. Like all the pads, they're already plugged into all the inputs on the drum module. You can split inputs, so you can add pads that way. But really, if you want to have the full power of each individual input, so having a rim and a drum head zone on each pad, then you're kind of maxed out. The funny thing about these drums is that they're so huge, there's not really that much room to add more drum pads on this drum rack, even though the drum rack itself is pretty darn large. But yeah, really nice drum rack. Not perfect though, in my opinion, because I wish there were ball clamps. And also it's not perfect because you can't run the wires through the drum rack itself. So that's another problem with the drum rack. But overall, it's a nicer drum rack than what the Roland TD25kv has. Okay, next up is the cymbals. Which drum set has the better cymbals? So the Alesis Strike Pro, the cymbal quality has gone way up since the DM10, since the Alesis Crimson, since the Command series, all those other drum sets. These cymbals are completely new. And let me tell you, they're a lot more fun to play. I've never liked the cymbals on the DM10, on the cat percussion drum sets, because they all use pretty much the exact same thing. So these cymbals are a nice step up over what Alesis has done in the past, so I'm really happy about that. They did not skimp out on the sizes of these cymbals. They're very large. You get a decently sized ride cymbal, large hi-hats, large crash cymbals. I really like the size of all the drums. The rubber material, it feels decent. Again, not quite as high quality as the Roland cymbals, but it's like right below it. Meanwhile, when you sit down to a Roland TD25kv, the cymbals are a lot smaller. They're a lot smaller. And it's very noticeable when you play an Alesis Strike and then you walk right over to a TD25 and sit down and play that, because that's what I did. Those cymbals, they're nicer, they're higher quality, they're better designed. I believe they'll last a little bit longer, but they're just very, very small cymbals compared to the Alesis Strike. So some people, this really bothers them. For me, it doesn't bother me as much, but man, I did kind of miss the large sizes of the Alesis Strike Pro. That is definitely something in its favor as far as the cymbals go. Now, the great thing about both of these drum sets is that they both have hi-hats on acoustic hi-hat stands. That's really important to me. I do like that. The problem with the Alesis Strike hi-hats is that they're not very good. Now, I've been told by people that I trust that if you spend the time in the drum module, use the auto calibration feature in the new update, and you spend time tweaking other settings, you can get the hi-hats working very well. But the problem is you got to spend time to get that result. Some people say they get great results just from the auto calibration. I played a drum set with the auto calibration and it was okay, but it's not on the level of the VH11. Okay, so if you put the work in, you can make it work well, but the Roland's just figured out hi-hats better than Alesis. In fact, there have been people that have bought Roland hi-hats to work with their Alesis Strike. So you can always do that. You can save the money on the Alesis Strike and sell the hi-hats, put that money towards buying the Roland hi-hats and have the best of both worlds. So keep that in the back of your head. But yeah, Roland wins on the hi-hats and pretty much nothing else right there. Now, I did get a chance to plug in a Roland CY15 into the Alesis Strike Pro drum module, and I found out that Roland cymbals are a little bit more sensitive. Of course, you can use the Alesis cymbals and just crank up the sensitivity inside the drum module, but overall, the Roland cymbals just run a little hotter. I guess that's what you would call it. Okay, so enough about the cymbals. Let's talk about the snare, the toms, the kick drum, all that good stuff. So on the Roland side, the pads are very small. Again, it's the same story as the cymbals. You get really nice designed, tom pads, snare, kick drum. Actually, I will say the kick drum is a weak spot on the Roland TD25. It moves around too much. You're going to have to do something or other to make sure that it doesn't move around. So the Alesis kick drum is superior in that way. As far as the quality of the rest of the pads, Roland has really nice snare and tom pads on this drum set. The Alesis drums are freaking massive. You get a 14-inch snare that's incredibly fun to play on. I don't know if it's like the mesh heads or the trigger cones inside of it, whatever, but your stick sort of digs into them a little bit, and I just like the mesh heads that they've gone with on this drum set. If we're going to talk about the quality of the pads, Roland takes the edge here again. Just the guts inside of them, the pad quality themselves, it's a nicer pad. However, they're really small. The Alesis Strike pads, they're larger, they got wood shells, they got sensitivity knobs on the side. They're pretty dynamic. They're pretty sensitive. You can do buzz rolls and stuff on them. I have doubts about them. I don't know how long they'll last, but I can't say they'll break because we don't know. We have no idea. The Alesis Strike is so new. We don't know if the pads will last for 20 years or 2 years. We have a longer track record with the Roland pads, so we know that they're going to last for quite a few years. The Alesis Strike Pro quality is still a little bit of a question mark here. All right, so let's move on to the drum module. Which one has the better drum module? I'm going to throw up the specs on screen right here so you can see what the guts of these things are, but I want to talk about the buttons and the inputs on them first. The thing about the Alesis Strike Pro is that it has individual inputs. I hate cable snakes, as I've ranted in other videos. Not a really big fan of cable snakes because if one cable breaks on the TD25kv drum set, you got to replace that entire cable snake. It's going to be $60. On the Alesis Strike Pro, one cable goes bad, you replace one cable from Amazon, it's going to cost you $10. So individual inputs, I'm a big fan of that. I believe it also has individual outputs as well. And another giant feature in favor of the Alesis Strike Pro drum module is that it's got individual faders for the kick drum, the toms, the cymbals, all of that. I'm a big fan of drum faders because I don't want to have to go in the module and then find the kick drum and then turn that up and down and then go in the module and find the cymbal and turn that up and down. I like to have individual volume sliders. And of course, as you can see from the specs right there, the Roland TD25 does not have nearly as many sounds. The Roland sounds themselves, the overall quality of them is very high. It's basically a nerfed TD30. You got TD30 sounds in there if you didn't know that. But they don't give you that many at all. And also the user interface of this thing is very wacky. On the one hand, I love the fact that there's individual tuning knobs, individual muffling knobs, individual EQ knobs. I absolutely love that. I wish drum modules had that because you don't have to go in the menus or anything. You hit the drum and you adjust the muffling. You hit the drum and then you adjust the tuning. I love that. I do not like having this giant center knob right here to switch between different genres. I like having knobs to control things, but you have to press in the knob to select different kits within each genre, which is really weird. I remember the first time I got to play this drum set a few years ago, I just sat there trying to figure out how in the world to change kits because I didn't realize the knob was also a button. Also in music stores, you'll notice that some of the like the EQ knobs and stuff, they'll be gone. Like you can pull them off if you pull hard enough on this drum module. I realize crappy things happen in music stores, but the overall build quality of the Roland TD25 is just not that high. It's a very lightweight drum module. I like Roland build quality, but they did not use the best materials for this drum module. Going back to the sounds for a second, the overall level of quality, like the average quality of each individual drum kit inside the module, is very good. They're consistently very good sounding. If you move over to the Alesis Strike Pro, it goes up and down. Some of the kits sound really bad, like really bad. Like they're there just to increase the number of sounds, just to increase the number of kits inside the spec sheets. However, they have certain kits inside of the Alesis Strike module that are absolutely amazing. One thing you got to remember if you decide to buy the Alesis Strike Pro is you have to download the updates. With the Roland drum set, it's like, whatever. You can download the updates, you can choose not to. Doesn't really matter. With the Alesis Strike Pro, you have to download the updates or else you won't get your hi-hats to work correctly because that update is critical in making sure your hi-hats work. They also give you 2 free drum sets. And these 2 new free drum sets that they recorded are absolutely insane. They sound amazing. And if every kit inside this drum module sounded as good as those 2 drum sets, this drum module would be an absolute beast. Unfortunately, the quality of the sounds go up and down. So yes, it has 2 amazing drum sets and it's got a couple of other really good ones, but they just don't sound that good out the box. You have to do a lot of layering, a lot of EQ compression to really bring out the good sounds inside of this drum module. That's the great thing about this module. You can layer sounds. That's a big deal because layering different sounds is how you get amazing thick drum sounds. And Roland drum modules, they don't let you do that except on like the TD50. There's a hack to do it on the TD30 if you want to, and other modules like that if you use a MIDI cable, which I'll probably make a different video about that later on. But in general, Roland modules just don't let you layer sounds, and that's a key to getting really thick, amazing sounding drums. Roland sounds better overall as far as consistency of each individual drum kit. The overall average quality of the sounds is better. However, the Alesis Strike, some of the sounds are just out of the ballpark, just really amazing. And then other ones are incredibly terrible and shouldn't be in the module at all. So it's a mixed bag, but if you do the right editing, you can get a lot of very good sounds out of the Alesis Strike. I should probably also mention that you can import samples. So you could take a bunch of snare samples from EZdrummer and throw those into the drum module and layer those as well. So there's a lot of different possibilities here. You don't have the file size limit available to just import an entire copy of Superior Drummer or EZdrummer, but you can import several layers of different sounds and stuff like that. So there is some headroom to make some cool kits. I will say this drum module does have two very important Achilles heels to it. It's not a perfect drum module at all. I mean, you can't make a drum module on this cheap of a drum set and be better than a Mimic or TD50. This drum module is kind of quiet. You have to crank up the master volume. You got to crank up your headphone volume. You got to go into each individual kit and crank up the kit volume or the individual instrument volume. If you do that, it's loud enough. I wouldn't really say that's a big deal, but I thought I'd mention it. The really big Achilles heel for this drum module, to me personally, is different for everybody, but I don't like the load times at all. Would you like to see a load time? Here it is. The load times vary from kit to kit, especially if two kits have similar cymbals or similar drums, because it only has to load those drums once. And if the next drum set has the same snare, it doesn't have to reload that snare. So what some people have said is, Justin, all you got to do is just make sure that most of your drums that you're switching to are mostly the same. But that's absolutely ridiculous, because why would someone tell me to make two drum sets I'm about to switch between nearly the same? I'm switching to the next drum set because I want to play something different, not something that's nearly the same. So that's kind of ridiculous just in my mind. But yeah, the load times are very grating on me. Imagine you're trying to play live and you're going to switch between two kits and between songs. 9 seconds is a heck of a lot of time if you're live on stage. When you're just playing in your basement, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter. On stage, it matters though. So that's just my 2 cents on that. The Roland load time is nothing. There is no load time because it's pretty much instantaneous to go from drum set to drum set, just like every other drum module on Earth. So which of these drum modules is better? The Alesis Strike Pro module is the better drum module. It's more powerful, it has inputs, it's got outputs. It's just a lot of different things that drummers have been asking for. So yeah, the Alesis Strike Pro has the better module. So now it's time to take a step back and look at both these drum sets as a whole. Who's the TD25kv for? Who's the Alesis Strike for? Because no matter what drum set you're looking at, there's no perfect one drum set for every drummer out there on Earth. I used to think that until I started getting messages from a lot of different people. I'd suggest a drum set, and it turned out it was actually the worst decision for their situation. So there's no perfect drum set between these two. There are pros and cons to both. Let me talk about who the Alesis Strike Pro might be for. The Alesis Strike Pro is better technically from a specification standpoint, but it's not perfect. It is not a plug-and-play situation. Let me put it this way. When you press factory reset and you get it as if you'd gotten it out of the box, it's not going to work properly. The hi-hat's going to be a mess. You're going to have to do some trigger settings. You're going to have to build a lot of really cool sounds. It's not going to be perfect out of the box. On the Roland TD25kv, I have pressed factory reset in store, and it just works flawlessly out of the box. The sounds are good. Of course, you'll want to do some muffling and EQ and stuff, but they sound good and they trigger perfectly out of the box. So the Roland TD25kv is a plug-and-play situation. But if you put in the work, the Alesis Strike Pro can get you superior results in some instances. You can get better sounds out of it. The hi-hat responsiveness is not going to be as good as the Roland one, no matter how much work you put into it. But you can always just go buy a Roland hi-hat and just fix the problem altogether. So basically what I'm trying to say is that the Alesis Strike Pro is for the patient guys out there. People willing to put the time in to layer sounds, to figure out the trigger settings, to do all that. You can get really good results out of that drum set, and it's a freaking large electronic drum set with a lot of pads for a lower price than the TD25kv. But it's not a plug-and-play situation. If you're brand new to E-drums and you don't know what the heck you're doing, you're gonna get really, 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 really frustrated with the Alesis Strike Pro. which we've seen. Moving over to the Roland TD25kv, it's my personal favorite of the two. I've played both multiple times, and I just feel more confident in the Roland TD25kv. When you sit down to play it, it just feels higher quality, it sounds higher quality out of the box, it triggers better just out of the box. I just like it more. I honestly like that drum set more than the Alesis Strike Pro. Your mileage will vary. You need to go play both these drum sets and make your decision after playing it in person. A lot of people are big fans of the Alesis Strike Pro. I'm not trying to come off as a Roland fanboy. And I also want to be fair to the Roland TD25kv though, because there are Alesis Strike, Pro owners that are just so confident in the Alesis Strike Pro, they think the Roland TD25kv is for idiots. And it really isn't. The Alesis Strike Pro is a great drum set, but there are lots of things in favor of the TD25kv. You got to go play them in store to really have an idea about which one is better for you. I personally like the Roland TD25kv. I've played both of them multiple times. That's just the decision I've come to myself. A couple of weeks ago, I put out a poll to you guys on YouTube asking what drum set would you buy? The Yamaha DTX 700, the Roland TD25kv, or the Alesis Strike Pro. Here's how you guys voted. I found it very interesting what the results were. I don't know if this is an indication of the broad overall market. I feel like most people are buying the Alesis Strike Pro over the Roland one. But as far as people that watch this channel, a majority of you guys seem to like the TD25kv more. There are great arguments for and against both drum sets. Anyway, I want to know your thoughts, your review of your drum set if you own either of these. I'm interested to find out. Leave those down in the comments below, and I'll see you guys in a few.